This is the examination of the hidden human condition.
You're listening to the Hidden Killers Podcast.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Bruschi.
We are talking with psychologist Dr. John Delatore today. And rather than focusing on one specific case, as we normally do, I want to talk specifically about individuals who commit crimes against their families or a single member of the family, yet still seem to think that life will go on just fine and removing them was the best idea. I mean, Murdaugh, we talk about it being a family annihilator, but there was still a surviving son. James Craig, the dentist, eliminating his wife. There's still all those kids there in the picture. Corey Richins, the allegations there of killing her husband, but then, wanting to stay the course and writing a children's book. The ex-wife of Jared Bridegan, Shanna Gardner Fernandez, who's not been charged with anything, but her new husband has, and killing him. There's a lot of this where sometimes it seems people find the solution to get rid of a spouse, get rid of a child, get rid of a this or that. What way of thinking is this? How are people coming into this expecting to, number one, not get caught, but then have that be the solution to all of their problems? Obviously, it's a very unhealthy way of dealing with things.
Yeah, it's a super unhealthy way of dealing with things. But I think the first thing is we have to make sure that we're not misapplying the term family annihilators.
Yeah.
Right? Family annihilators was originally designed as an aspect of mass killing in which the husband kills the entirety of his family. No one is left alive. Under its original definition, how it was originally constructed as a way of defining mass killing. So in the scenarios that we're describing, these aren't family annihilators. The reality is that victims of all crimes are more likely to be victims. They're more likely to be victimized by someone that they know, whether it's a family member or a friend or an acquaintance. It's an astronomically high number when it comes to the victims of crimes actually knowing who their abuser is or who victimized them, whoever that is, they know them. The reality also is that we may have criminal impulses, but we are unable to engage in the criminal acts against strangers because we have a readily available victim. Whatever it is that's going on inside of us, could we apply it to a victim and just killing the victim? Sure, but that's not the issue. The issue is that this individual who is standing right next to me is getting in my way. For whatever that means for the killer. The individual standing next to me is getting in my way, and I have to remove them. Mm-hmm. That person is no longer important to me, but yet they remain. I must do something to get rid of them. And so that's why we see these victims of crimes being family members, spouses, and children and stuff like that, because they're no longer that relationship anymore. They're simply an object to be utilized and removed however the person sees fit.
So they're basically not seeing them as human anymore.
No, not as human anymore. No.
Are there typically signs that the perpetrator exhibits before they take their act and they actually commit the crime of removing that individual from the earth?
Sure, but who's there? Who's going to see it? I mean, the reality is that even in the Corey Richardson case, the victim had said multiple times that he believed that he was being poisoned.
Yeah.
There's no clearer sign that you are being poisoned than the belief that you're being poisoned, because I don't think that from my day-to-day life. And I'm sure, Tony, you don't think that from your day-to-day life. So the fact that it popped into your head should be the biggest red flag that there is.
Do we typically try to rationalize those sort of things? I mean, do you think Corey Richardson's husband was, from what we understand, he was staying there for the children, and that he thought that he was better off being present for the kids rather than her have even 50-50 custody, being concerned for their own well-being. So he wanted to stick around, and then, of course, ended up dying by being poisoned with fentanyl in a Moscow mule. What is that in us? And is there something that can be said? Is there something to kind of push somebody over the edge to take action, to get away, to escape a situation like that, rather than sit in that sort of feeling and situation of protecting the children with someone that we may suspect of being very vile and possibly dangerous?
What I'm going to say next is probably going to inflame a lot of men's groups, very specific men's groups. What I'm going to say is that, yes, we often rationalize the belief that our loved ones aren't going to hurt us. And in this case, I can imagine that some men might think that the court systems work against the man, work against the father, and that if the father tries to take the child away, even from knowingly dangerous scenarios, that the court is just going to give the children to the mother and the father is going to be blamed for everything. But the reality is the only people that matter are the kids. And if you think that your loved one is going to kill you, then you need to think that they're going to kill them also. So staying in the relationship for the children in a scenario in which you could potentially die is putting the children at risk. So if you need to take the kids, you automatically go to the police, you go get an attorney, and you do what you need to do in order to keep the children safe.
How common is it that we don't hear about this sort of scenario with men? We hear about it with women all the time. There's television networks like Lifetime dedicated to it, where it's the abusive husband that's doing horrible things or passive aggressively or manipulating in some way, shape, or form the female. How often is it that men are in this sort of situation? An example like the Corey Richins allegations there, where they are doing that. They are sitting there. They are trying to protect their family. They don't know what to do. There's not a lot of support for it. And then allegations can go flying from the spouse of bad behavior, whether it's true or not, just because the female seems to be a little bit more believable or accepted in their terms of accusations. Do we have an epidemic of men that are stuck in situations right now that are fearing for their own lives or for that of the children?
I wouldn't call it an epidemic. What I would call it is a society in which men are not allowed to be vulnerable, where men are expected to be powerful and in control, that men are expected to be aggressive rather than be emotionally present and communicative and assertive. And in that scenario, in the societies in which men are only allowed to be aggressive, and in those scenarios, when men are found to be in a position in which that aggressiveness has been taken away, we're not going to believe them, or we believe that they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing, or they're not much of a man. So I think men find themselves in these positions more often than we recognize. Yeah. But it's because men do not believe that they're going to be believed, or that once it becomes aware that this is what's happening to them, that they'll no longer be viewed as men. The masculinity is very much tied to how forward you are with your behaviors. And if it looks like you are the victim of something, that takes away from your masculinity. And that's a problem with society that we have.
This is an examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast
with Tony Bruschi.
Dr. John Delatore, thank you so much for your insight and that conversation. Very interesting. If you want to weigh in on any of the cases that we're following for you right here, we have a phone number for that. Yes, we do. 888-5KILLER. 888-554-5537 to weigh in with your opinions and thoughts. We may use them on a future episode of the program. Tell us what you think about these cases. My name is Tony Bruschi. Stay with us.